Welcome to SmallTalk by Sfarim Chatter. I'm Nachi Weinstein. On this episode of SmallTalk, I'm going to be joined by Rabbi Meir Trepp, who was a Dai in South Africa, a Rosh Kollel in France, and is now Mechaber of Biur Meir, which is the number of, I think, 7 volumes published in Hebrew, together with, you've probably seen it, Shulchan Aruch Habo here with Biur Meir. It says it's got like the Biur cover. And now there's a 1 or 4 volume, depending on how you purchase it, in English. Yeridea Simonim Rish Memorization Test, the laws of honoring parents, honoring one's rabbi and Torah scholars, teachers, Torah study, and charity. And just reading the English because it has English on the cover. So we'll be discussing, mainly focused on the English edition of Biur Meir and discussing what that is in Shulchan Aruch. So thank you, Rabbi Trepp, for joining me. Okay, so what can you tell the listeners about the English Shulchan Aruch, the English translation with commentary Biur Meir on Shulchan Aruch?
Right, so it's about 100 years ago that the Daf Yomi movement changed the world. And it seems like something has also been happening the last 10, 20, 30 years, that halacha has also been started to be accepted in the Torah world. And many of the youngsters, Talmidei Chachamim, are sitting and learning Shulchan Aruch. Now, from the time of the Shulchan Aruch that was written 450 years ago, many excellent Sfarim were written on different parts of the Shulchan Aruch. The famous Sefer Mishnah Biur was written on Orach Chaim. It seemed like something like this is missing in Yeridea. Now, there's excellent Sfarim in every part of Yeridea. A friend of mine, a Rav in South Africa, said to me, I want to go through Yeridea 2 hours a day and get the picture over 3 years, 4 years. I've gone through Shas Mishnayos, I've gone through Mishnah Biur. How can I go through Yeridea? And I said to him, look, depends which topic. There's excellent Sfarim. You have Badei Shulchan, Chalkas Binyamin, you have Nite Gavriel, you have Shira Shevet HaLevi, Chut Shani, endless Sfarim, which each one of them is an excellent sefer. He says, no, but I want to try and keep one style short, to the point, and get the picture of what Yeridea is about. I said to him, you know what, you've planted in my mind this idea. This is something that I really want to try and work on and be able to do such a thing, that if someone that learns the Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Ribis, can see how credit card comes out of Shulchan Aruch. But besides understanding literally what the Shulchan Aruch has said, which is many times seems to be a difficult thing to understand, just simply what the Shulchan Aruch has said, then going through everything, all the commentaries that were written from the time of the Shulchan Aruch, and until today, and seeing the relevant questions, short, to the point, it seems like it's a very, very big mission to be able to get it. Just for an example, when I was going through Hilchos Nida, there's about 22 Sfarim, excellent Sfarim that were written from our time, from Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, Rabbi Eliashiv, all the psakim of our days, poskim. It was like 22 Sfarim, relevant, interesting, that I felt each one of these Sfarim deserves to be learned properly. But how can a learner go through 22 Sfarim on one topic? And after seeing all the poskim of your minhagim, are you going to be starting now to look through the Chasidische, the Litvische, the Sfardische poskim, the Meir Bransdorfer's psakim? There are different streams and different kinds of poskim, but you want to know them. You want to know what they've said about it. But to be able to start learning through it properly, when I had my kollel and we learned Hilchos Nida, so one cycle we learned through Shira Shevet HaLevi, Kased. Then we went through, the second time, we went through Badei Shulchan Kaseh. But besides that, there are so many more. How can a learner go through all of it together? And this is something that I felt that has to be done. Explaining shortly what a person needs to know, what the Shulchan Aruch has said, knowing what the Shach and Taz have added, and bringing all the Achronim together on one page next to the Shulchan Aruch. You're seeing the words of the Shulchan Aruch and seeing like an explanation, but a summary of what everyone has discussed on, and moving on to the next seif, but dividing it. And this is something that important that I felt that needs to be done. Dividing what you have to know and what is an interesting topic that you can decide whether you want to go into it or not. So explaining the Shulchan Aruch and have to know what you have to know should be there was written in the Biur Meir. And next to it is Piska Poskim, is similar to like what the Dirshu have done, like different topics with a heading to it. And you can decide whether this is a topic that you want to go into, you want to learn it. But it's not something you have to know. So it's separated. So it's built in a way where a balabas can just read the Biur Meir without going into the footnotes, without going into more details, and get the full picture. If you want to go more, you want to go beyond that, you have the footnotes. You want to go further, you have the Piska Poskim, you have the footnotes that you can extend the picture and the framework of the learning.
So the Hebrew Biur Meir, the number of volumes already, maybe listeners have seen it, it's got that red cover. The English you did blue, so kind of it's different covers, looks a little different, even though otherwise it's the same. Is the Hebrew Biur Meir the same thing you just said, just in Hebrew, and now the English is basically translating, adapting this into English?
Right. Being quite a lot in America, I saw that there's so many Talmidei Chachamim that are mamish on a level of Talmidei Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael. But English is their language, and they prefer learning in English. So I felt that the English shouldn't be less of a level of the Hebrew. And the English is exactly, literally, word by word, kimat, English to Hebrew. The level has not been diluted into English. If you don't understand something in the Hebrew, you can see it in the English. If you don't see it in the English and understand it, you can have a look in the Hebrew. You'll find it there, and it's exactly the same, maybe different wording, but the level is the exact same level, and it's a level also for people that are Talmidei.
So you explained kind of the structure of the Biur Meir, and you have the translated in the bold, and then you'll have the explanation, and then you have the Piskei Poskim, you have the footnotes, and so on. Perhaps you want to give an example or two to illustrate how this works for those interested or curious to find out more about this.
So if I'll discuss, let's say, we're talking, let's say, about Hilchos Kibud Avoim. So besides explaining what the Shulchan Aruch has said and bring what's very relevant on the words of the Shulchan Aruch, you're going to have many discussions, many topics that are going to be very relevant to every kind of seif, but it's not something you have to know. That's an example. Costs, the Shulchan Aruch talks about that any costs that are involved in honoring a parent, the parents need to pay for it. So there's this whole discussion whether a person comes to his father, does the father need to pay for it? Or can the father say, no, you must walk to me and I don't need to pay the cost of you coming to me? But sending parents to old age home, who needs to pay for it? Or going into the question of honoring parents, and a person wants to go to Eretz Yisrael. But by going to Eretz Yisrael, he'll be missing out of Kibud Avoim. So moving to Eretz Yisrael, and but that honoring less parents, the parents, is that a reason not to go, or a person should be going? To change a minhag, a father says to his child, I don't want you to do that. That's not my minhag. You should change your minhag. Or father telling his son, I want you to shave. I want you to look smart. I want you to look nice. I don't want you to grow a beard. These are discussions that the Achronim have discussed. The Chazon Ish and others were debating these kind of questions. And when it comes also to Balet Tshuva, then you also have many questions with children dealing with parents. A father says to his kid, just a few minutes before Shabbos, go buy me cigarettes. A child knows that his father won't be keeping Shabbos. He'll be smoking on Shabbos. Is that a reason not to buy him, or can he, or should he not? I personally had a story. I was in hospital with my father, Alav Shalom, and he was sick. And a doctor came in and called me out to tell me the diagnosis and that my father is not in a good condition. When I came back, my father insisted. He said to me, I insist you should tell me. What did the doctor tell me? I want to know my situation. And I felt, my father insisted that I should tell him. And I felt, if that's what he wants, that's what he wants. And I told him. Afterwards, I learned the halacha, I learned the sugya, and it turned out to be that a father, according to 99% of the poskim, cannot tell his son, harm me, hit me, hurt me. There's no mechila on such a thing. A father cannot be moichel and say, hit me. So too, a father cannot say to a son, cause me pain by telling me the truth or telling me bad news. A father cannot be moichel. And although my father insisted that I should tell him, it was incorrect for me to tell him the truth. Furthermore, as I saw the results by him, and by many, many times, when you say bad news to a father, the father's health can go down and can be affected by a person saying such a thing. Who has the heter to do such a thing? So even if a father says, the child cannot do that. So this is a few examples of Hilchos Kibud Avayim. That is very relevant. So when a person learns the Shulchan Aruch, I would like him to see the practical outcome of the Shulchan Aruch on day-to-day matters. I want to take this opportunity and give another example. Hilchos Talmud Torah. Seif Vav, the Shulchan Aruch speaks about teaching Torah to girls. Isha shelamda Torah yesh lo schar. And then the Shulchan Aruch goes on to say, Shelo yelamed odom es bitoy Torah, mipnei sheroi vanoshim ein daeton mechuvenes lehislamed umetzias dvar Torah ledivra havai. Meaning, we should not teach Torah to girls. And the question raises, after seeing the Shulchan Aruch, the Shach, Taz, Halacha Lamaisa, we know that there's the Yaakov schools, and everyone is teaching their girls Torah. So what is going on here? This opens up this whole discussion among the later Achronim, like the Chofetz Chaim, there's Kan Aaron, the Rebbe Misatmer, the Rav Zalman Sorotzkin, all debating, all discussing the concept of opening Beis Yaakov for girls. And the question also goes into what exactly are you allowed to teach the girls? What exactly was needed? What isn't needed? Which halachas? The way of teaching Torah, the way of teaching Tanakh. So this is not written in the Shulchan Aruch, but this is debatable among the poskim. And if someone looks into it, this is a whole section here dealing with the different minhagim that exist, and that the Satmar Rebbe was very against it, and certain schools and certain Hasidus teach it differently. It's when you see the Shulchan Aruch, it seems simple that it's Asur and that's the end of it. But when you look into it, there's much more written on it, and the whole history over the last 150 years is written here in a short summary. I want to maybe raise like 1 or 2, 3 points that maybe people are dealing with in Hilchas Tzedakah. If someone owes money, is he allowed to give tzedakah, or can he not give tzedakah until he pays all his debts? Can someone save tzedakah money for marrying off his kids? From which age of the child can someone save the money for them? The Achronim have discussed it. Rav Vosner has spoken about it. I even saw that Baron Leib had an opinion about it. And this is discussed in the Sefer. Getting percentage for collecting money. Someone's collecting money and he's getting, what's the amount a person can take? This has been debated in the poskim and it's brought down in the Sefer. Giving tzedakah for older boys or for children, what comes first? For an old yeshiva or for a new yeshiva? For yeshiva g'dayla or for koilel? For balei tshuva or for regular people? For bein hazmanim or for the zman? All these questions have been discussed in the Sefer, in the Achronim, and when the person learns Hilchos Tzedakah, to now start opening all these Sfarim and seeing all of it, it's just impossible for someone who wants to cover ground and to move on and to know where to look. It's a mission which over the last few years, me and my team have been working on it to make it accessible, short, to the point, for the learner to get it all together on the page, next to the page of a Shulchan Aruch, and be able to cover ground and to move on. I say there's about 2,700 simonim on Arba Chekes Shulchan Aruch. And if a person would learn every single day to be able to cover Arba Chekes Shulchan Aruch, it just seems to be a life mission. And the question is that the way it should be? That we should be learning Shulchan Aruch through 50, 60, 70 years just to get through it the first time? How will a person be able to go through Basa B'chalav, Taruvas, Ribis, Nida, Mikvos? All these halachas are l'maisa and nogea to everyone at home. Besides Orach Chaim, even in Even Ezer, Chas Yichud, many of these halachas are nogea Choshen Mishpat is shalas of the Oraisa, of Dinei Mominus, to be able to go through, just to go through Yor Yodea. Does it mean that a person needs to spend 15, 20 years to go through it? Then it turns out to be that no one can really know Arba Chelkei Shulchan Aruch properly. And this, I think, that is what the Mishnah Biur was bothered by. And this is also something that I felt that is very important, is to make it accessible, everything that was done until now. The Mishnah Biur was saying, every single question, you're going to be starting to open all the different Sfarim. It's just impossible to know where to look and the time you're going to be investing in it. And this is something that we felt that also needs to be done in Yorodea. And I think this is a first step towards making it easier and accessible for people to have no more excuses to go through and know properly Yorodea.
So you mentioned the Piskei HaPoskim, and we've talked about different Poskim that you use, but do you use everyone and anyone, or are there certain Poskim, especially in the Piskei HaPoskim section, that you focus on more than others?
So there are the classic Poskim, which have written a lot on many of the questions of our generation, which is, of course, the Chazon Ish. And you have Rav Moshe Feinstein, you have Rav Shlomo Zalman, you have Rav Eliashiv, you have Rav Nissim Karelitz, Rav Wozner, Rav Yitzchok Weiss, Minchas Yitzchok. And you have among the Sfardim also Rabbi Tzion Abba Shaul, very much involved in many parts of the halakha. You have Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. You have also in the Hasidic poskim, very famous and very important. You have the Ber Moshe. You have the Cheshev Eifod. You have many Gdolim in specific areas. But first of all, we're talking about all these Gdolim to capture all of them together on one page, to get all of these poskim, just them alone, bringing them all together. I think it's very important, and nothing like this has been done. Each one of them has been brought in a different sefer. To bring it all together and to see all of them together, that I think is very important in our generation, to bring all these later poskim into one page. But besides them, in like every single field, there were experts. Like you have the Badei Shulchan in certain parts, you have the Chelkas Binyamin in certain parts, and very important Sfarim, Rabbi Yaakov Bloy on Mezuzah, and etc. In every kind of topic, there were Sfarim that were outstanding. And to find those Sfarim took some time. Obviously, I benefited the Otzar Chachma that has all of them. They're available, and to be able to find, after going through many of the Sfarim, find like in every topic, the 7-8 Sfarim that I found that were outstanding. And obviously, when you go through it, you're going to see in Ilchas Kibud Avayim there was certain Sfarim. There's someone called written the Sefer Oitzer Kibud Avayim, and you have Ilchas Tzedakah, you have others. You had Ilchas Melamdim, Ilchas Talmud Torah. Each one of them, Ilchas Melamdim. This is a whole section of Chinuch. Rabbi Yehuda had a lot to say on it, and many of his psakim were brought by mechanchim, and therefore I also brought them. In every field, there were very special Sfarim, which above all the Gdola Poskim that have written on everything, there was room for these specific Sfarim to fit in.
Who is the Shulchan Aruch Biur Meir in English meant for?
So when I came with my sefer to the Ber Moshe's son, he wrote in his Askoma, I can see the importance of this sefer to Balabatim, to Avrechim in Galat, and for Rabbonim and Talmidei Chachamim. The first sefer that I wrote in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh, was on Hilchas Nida. And he said, I'm the son of the Ber Moshe, and he was very famous in Hilchas Tahara. And I myself have been giving shiurim for 18 years on this. And I've just come now back from a shiur that I gave on this. It was Shoivavim. I've given a shiur on it. I want to see what you've written. And when he went through what I wrote, he said to me, you know what? I want to tell you, you've brought here shittas that I haven't come across. And he said the importance of the Sefer is also for Talmidei Chachamim, because how many of the Talmidei Chachamim of Ashkenazi poskim are aware of the psakim of Rabbi Ovadia and Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu? And specifically when a Sephardi comes to Ashkenazi Rav, a Rav needs to know these halachas and to know that there are different shittas and different opinions, and there's a very chashuv, a ben ish chai that has a chumrah or has a kula. So I feel that besides making it simple for a balabas to read and understand what the Shulchan Aruch has said, it's set up in a way where even a Talmud Chacham can benefit, and even a Talmud Chacham can find things that he has not found by opening the classic Sfarim on what he's learning.
Finally, which is related question, is what are you trying to accomplish with the English Biur Meir and really all the Biur Meir? I mean, I think there's something we discussed throughout the episode, but just to tie a bow on it, if you will.
So my dream is that one day there'll be chaburas learning Daf Yomi in Shulchan Aruch properly. I think that there's a need for it. I think that there's a request for it, and I think that what's missing is that such a thing should be available. I'm dreaming that there'll be a day that everyone will be learning the Shulchan Aruch and know it properly, to know what the Ratzon Hashem is on day-to-day basis, and not to have spoons on top of the fridge because you don't know the psakim, and not to debate how to treat your parents and kids and children because you haven't learned Yichas Kibud Avayim, Yichas Talmud Torah. To be able to approach every single person who comes to you for tzedakah and to know exactly what is the way to deal with someone who comes to you and asks something that doesn't make sense in your eyes or does make sense. These halachas, I think every person should be knowing, and I hope that everyone eventually will have in his house the Shulchan Aruch explained and will learn from it and know exactly what Hashem wants us to do on every day and every act.
Okay, so I will link to it in the show notes, and to mention that I think I mentioned this earlier, but just to emphasize, the English one is available in a one volume, so you can get one big volume about 500 pages, the way you would assume like Shulchan Aruch is, or you can buy it in 4 volumes if you want to have it, split up, so you want to go through it topically or just have it more portable. So it's available in a 4-volume set or a 1 volume. I'll link to that in show notes. And the Hebrew Biur Meir, which we're focusing on here, which is something in Hebrew, there's 7 volumes. I think Rabbi Trepp, you told me that the 8th volume should be coming out soon.
Yes, Hebrew and English, Mitzvah Shem. And they're learning it in Koilalim in Eretz Yisrael. This is something that is learned in Koilalim. It's not just as you may think it's Balabatim. Koilalim, very chashuv, Koilalim are learning with these forum, like Hilchas Mikvos, Keseder. It's an eye-opening even for Talmidei Chacham.
Okay, well, thank you, Rabbi Trepp, for joining me.